Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to Fable Forge. Today I got an r/askreddit thread about scary science fact that the public knows nothing about. These are cool. I like science facts. It's a little bit different than what I do with the paranormal/true crime stuff, but being kind of a science nerd or geek, I like these kind of videos. So if you like, please like, comment, and subscribe to get more Reddit story narrations, and I hope y'all enjoy. r/askreddit. What's a scary science fact the public knows nothing about? A CME, or coronal mass ejection, is the most likely civilization ending disaster to come from space. The sun emits them regularly and they hit Earth every few hundred years. The last one occurred in the 1980s, but society at the time was less susceptible to the effects. Were one to hit Earth today, it would basically destroy all of the tech infrastructure on whichever side of the planet is facing the sun at the time. This would knock the affected hemisphere back into the stupid ages, and it would take decades to recover, altering the global balance of power forever. It's only a matter of time. We could mitigate the effects, but it would be expensive, so we haven't and likely never will. At least not until the problem becomes real to people. By then it'll be too late. This is much more likely scenario than an asteroid impact. 50% of insects have disappeared since 1970. Insect population is down 27% in the last 30 years, declining between 1 and 4% each year, depending on the genus. Researchers have found viruses in the Arctic permafrost that have been frozen for thousands of years. One of these viruses, Pavlovirus, was dormant for 30,000 years until the researchers revived it and it infected the amoeba that were placed in the tank with it, which of course presents a scary scenario. What happens when the ice melts away and viruses are released that haven't been in contact with humans for 10,000 plus years? Fun fact: a large chunk of human DNA is believed to be transpositioned from viruses. Think of the herpes simplex virus. The reason you get it for life is because it engineers its way onto your DNA. It forever incorporates yourself into your DNA. Long story short, what scientists used to call junk DNA is not only regulatory elements, but leftover artifacts from previous evolutionary battles with ancient viruses. Look up transpawn experiments with maize for further in-depth explanations if you're interested. Airplanes are dynamically stable, but helicopters are dynamically unstable. That means if an airplane pilot lets go of the controls of a small plane with no autopilot, if it's correctly trimmed and balanced, it will keep flying until it runs out of fuel. If a helicopter pilot lets go of the controls, in about 2.4 seconds, it will tip over to such a degree that it is unrecoverable. We can let go of one control, the collective, for a little while by frictioning it in place to change the radio, adjust something, scratch our nose, or whatever. But it's friction on, do the thing with your left hand, friction off, and hand back on the collective. We fly 3 seconds away from falling out of the sky all of the time. But then again, it's kind of the same for bicycles, although they can only tip left or right, not every direction. Subconsciously, you're always adjusting your weight and controlling the steering to stay upright. Same thing in a heli. You balance on a column of air and you keep balancing the whole time, just like on a bike. You don't even notice, you just do it. The world is literally running out of sand that is usable to manufacture concrete. Most of the world's sand is in deserts, but usable sand only comes from riverbeds, shores, and lake beds. People are being murdered over sand right now. Whole onions, all veggies in the allium family, are toxic to dogs. Worst case scenario, they can develop AIHA, autoimmune hypolimic anemia, whereas the dog's body destroys its own red blood cells. The disease is about 80% fatal. My dog caught it, and we're not sure from where, but it was a primary disease, not result of a cancer. We think he was eating leeks out of the garden. Took a week in the hospital, 2 blood transfusions, and about 6 months of meds to get him back. He started at 45 pounds and was down to 19 pounds at the worst part of it. There are weaponized strains of anthrax which can remain viable and dangerous for 40 plus years after release. In 1942, the UK tested an anthrax bomb on Grunewald Island, killing a flock of sheep in days. Some died in hours. Examination showed that the spores can remain active for decades, and decontamination proved to be impossible at the time. The project was scrapped. Fast forward to 1981, an eco-terrorist group smuggled a sample off the island and threatened the UK government with releasing it if the island wasn't decontaminated. The spores were still active and deadly. It took 4 years to plan and execute the cleanup, using 280 tons of formaldehyde in a seawater solution and removing 7 hectares worth of soil to a depth of 3 feet, about 58,000 tons of topsoil, where the concentration was too high for the juice to do the job. The island was confirmed clean in 1990, 4 years after cleanup began. The Demon Core was a spherical 6.2 kilogram subcritical mass of plutonium 89 millimeters in diameter, manufactured during World War II by the United States nuclear weapon development effort, the Manhattan Project, as a fissile core for an early atomic bomb. It was involved in 2 criticality accidents on August 21st, 1945 and May 21st, 1946, each of which killed a person. Heart muscle cells don't reproduce much in adult, roughly 1% per year. If you have an infraction on other stressors that kills those cells, then your heart won't be able to grow new cells to replace the dead ones. This is why patients with diseases like heart failure end up needing a heart transplant. Trying to get this process to happen is a major goal for many cardiac researchers. Approximately 60%, in some reports, of the world's population have the parasite Toxoplasma gondii in their brain. For a long time, it's thought to have been benign presence, but recent statistical research shows that it may have an impact on things like levels of anger and rates of accidents and suicides. When Gandhi on rats, it changes their behavior so that they smell the cat urine is sexually appealing. So they find the cats and get eaten. In the gut of the cat, the parasite can reproduce. If your dog swims in a lake after receiving a spot-on flea treatment, it absolutely decimates the invertebrate population. A large dog swimming in 8 Olympic swimming pools worth of water soon after treatment will leach enough neurotoxin to kill 50% of the lake's invertebrate population within 48 hours. I say after, I mean relatively soon after, within, say, a day. To have the effect this is quite devastating. The leech does reproduce over the month, but it's still there, and the effect of multiple dogs still allows for terrible buildup of chemicals. DuPont knowingly infected over 90% of American population with PFOAs, a harmful plastic that has a half-life of 20 years. Lawsuit is still ongoing, but no one seems to be bothered. Brain aneurysms can be completely unpredictable and can happen any time in your life, no matter how healthy you are. A kid I went to high school with at the age of 16 just did not wake up one morning, and the cause of his death was a brain aneurysm. So many people struggle with infertility. It's not talked about or really discussed in middle school or high school in health class. When it happens, it's such a shock to the families and they're completely unprepared. The numbers are going up as well. Statistical 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, which is pretty high, but again, miscarriage isn't discussed. There are alternative ways some proteins can form tertiary structures. These different structures make the protein unable to function. These alternate protein structures are infectious and incurable so as they are so stable. If you get some in your blood, they will slowly convert your own proteins when making contact. They're called prions. A lot of people in rural towns with an elevated cemetery around, this happens in Ireland a lot, there is a formaldehyde leaking into drinking water, but it won't kill you. But the thought of drinking dead people juice is probably equally as bad. Sorry, not sorry. The plague is still out there. The bubonic plague is endemic in many parts of the world, but cases are very well, we've got it pretty well handled. If there's a general breakdown in society, like nuclear war, supervolcano eruption, or asteroid impact, it's out there waiting to come back. Another Carrington event. The original Carrington event was in 1859, which was basically an intense geomagnetic storm that disrupted slash knocked out telegrams because that's all the technology there was to disrupt back then. Nowadays, we use electricity for virtually everything. If it hit now, the effect would be like an EMP but globally. There'd be no functional technology that involved electrics. In essence, losing all electrics in the world to stop communications, then logistics, then fundamental infrastructure like food distribution, healthcare, and utilities, other than electricity. Anyways, guys, that'll be the end of this video. I really appreciate y'all watching if y'all got this far. If y'all did, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment if y'all would like to see more of this or have any suggestions of what to do next, what I should change, keep doing. I really appreciate it. Trying to grow the channel's hard, but this is a little bit different than what I usually do, but I kind of liked it, being a science geek, nerd, whatever you want to call it. These videos are pretty interesting to me, but yeah, guys. Again, please like, comment, subscribe if y'all enjoyed, and I hope y'all have a good week.